I finally went the third year. We had a great group, we had a great conversation, but I spent half of that session asking them to tell me. What does your church say about this? What do you do about this? How do you feel about this? So that I could build some kind of common patch of ground for us to even stand on. The second thing is, this is my bias. I grew up Church of Christ, so it's the hardest thing for me of all. When they finish talking is not the time for me to tell them my confessional or my evangelical script. When they finish, a great answer is, that is so interesting, I can't wait to hear more. It's not another thing we do particularly well as church people. We're willing to wait and listen, but then just as soon as we get a chance, we want to make sure we get in whatever the message is. I told them my church had a sign on the wall that said, "Untold thousands are dying every day, untold." And every time I went to Bible school, they reminded me, have you told someone today about Jesus Christ? Have you told 2 people? Did you meet 100 people? Did you have a chance to tell 100? Did you lose that opportunity? Okay? We do it though. Whatever tradition we come up in, whatever the thing is we're taught is supposed to be the next thing we say. That's what we do. You cannot do that and bridge. Those are 2 pieces of advice I have. I have a lot of ideas about structuring meetings and all that kind of stuff. Doesn't matter if you're not doing the other stuff. Next.
How do you deal with situations where you have a really extreme like the Westboro that openly advocates violence and not bullying?
What do I do, or what should you do? Well, Westboro particularly dislikes Soulforce. We have to change our fax number a lot because their favorite strategy, if we get a fax number, is then to overload our fax, with messages of hate. But nonviolence says this to me. The people of Westboro, the most virulent people in the world, are the most afraid. As fear is the basis of all anger. So the first thing that we generally do, if the police allow it, most of the time now the police don't want Westboro and nonviolent people in the same room because the Westboro people are violent and the nonviolent people aren't, so then someone's going to get hurt and the police have to fix that. But if we're allowed to be in the same space, we actually follow the very same strategy. We let them have their whole thing as long as they need to have it. We stand in quiet vigil. We say absolutely nothing. When the opportunity comes, which usually there is an opportunity in that case when it comes, our statement to the world about this is we do not believe that violence, spiritual violence or physical violence, is an appropriate response of believers in any situation. That's what we believe, and then we carry on that conversation. There will always be someone who's the most hateful. That's how the world works. If it's not Westboro, it'll be someone else, because there's always someone who's the most afraid. It helps me a lot to remember they're afraid. Yes?
So I want to revisit your answers to the previous 2 questions.
Yes.
During your talk, you were really passionate in one view when you talked about the lies the church tells about homosexuality in the Bible. And now in the answers, you seem equally passionate about dialogue. And sometimes I feel that the 2 things are in tension. You talk about listening, but how can you be that active listening and say, really interesting position at the same time present your perspective of the life the church has been saying about homosexuality in the Bible? How do you appreciate that tension?
Well, for me, and I can only speak from the Christian tradition on this because it's what I know, but my experience with people who believe they are correct, who feel they are called by God to tell you that you are wrong, they will not listen or rest until they've had that say. Because sometimes they truly do feel compelled by God to do it. So letting them have that say is a piece of it. That's the listening piece of it. The second piece is, once they've done that for me, if they're willing to hear me then, sometimes they are and sometimes they're not, that is my moment to say, I hear you and I hear that you feel as strongly about this as I do. The Jesus I know simply would not do this to another human being. I mean, if I get to say anything about what I think Jesus would do, then I feel great. And sometimes it's nothing more than to pose this sort of theological debate. Why did Jesus do that thing on the cross where he told this thief he was taking him home to paradise? That's the most irrational thing for someone to do in the last 3 minutes of their lives that I could imagine. The thief was unclean, according to his community. His own family would not have taken him down from the cross because he was unclean. Why did Jesus do that? I asked my childhood minister that once, and he said, well, it probably didn't play out exactly that way. I said, no, wait. We believe the Bible is infallible, inerrant, so no, what is that about? And he said, we don't know. I said, that thief was not baptized. There's no evidence that thief was baptized. So how is he going home to paradise? I don't get that. My minister said, you have been asking questions like this since you were 10, and I wish you would stop. That's the point, though, isn't it? See, we got to have 10 minutes of dialogue right there, with no one spitting on each other. And he's changed now because of that, and I'm changed. Part of my answer to you is we always want too much too fast. This nonviolence process is called relentless because it's like water dripping on a rock. It's not like a tsunami. I may not have answered your question, but that's it. Yes?
You talked about the lies that Christians tell. And I was just wondering if you could give an example of a lie that they say about homosexuality in the Bible.
Sure. If you refer to the clobber passages of the Bible, there are 7, maybe 8, depending on your perspective. We're taught that those passages are the absolute truth about homosexuality. Homosexuals are an abomination to God and really should be killed. I mean, if you stick it all together. And yet, if you ask the same person telling you that, so does everything else apply under Levitical law? We still should stone women who are identified as this. Children should be killed by their parents if they will say, well, absolutely not. We don't do things like that anymore in the church. So, to me, when someone tells me one thing is true under one set of standards, and another thing that's under that standard is not true because I decided it's not true. Our society evolved enough, it's no longer true. That's a lie. So that's how I interpret. We do that with our kids. Do you have children? Yeah. You do it with your children all the time. It's creative truth. This thing is sort of true, but this thing is sort of not true because you don't want them to actually get into the whole thing. But that's why I think it's a lie. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much. I did not talk about, but if you're interested in the Would Jesus Discriminate campaign, which was this book, and this went on in 152 cities worldwide, Australia, Cape Town, and other places. It talks about how individual churches and communities can initiate dialogue, the question the gentleman had in the back, about these issues without it being nonviolent and destructive. So if you're interested, there's some brochures right there. Thank you.